This congregation really does embrace these words. We don't always get it right, but we are intentional and we take it seriously as we strive to create the world that we know is possible. The words of the covenant are printed in your order of service. For those joining virtually, you can find that on the YouTube page or on the homepage of our website. Please join me in speaking these living words. We are a people of faith and hope. Together we covenant to strive to become our better selves, to honor both the critical mind and the generous heart, to prove that diverse mind and the generous heart, to prove that diverse. So, enjoy. Apparently, I needed Aaron to play music for me today. This beloved community cares deeply for each other and our wider community and the world. It's amazing to see all of the different projects and activities that ripple out from this place. We have so many opportunities to share our many gifts.
Pet on my phone. This sparked a conversation about pets. Kimora shared that her pet of choice would be a ferret. She had the name, color of the leash, where it would sleep, and was insistent about what she would feed it. It was then that she asked me, "What do ferrets eat?" I suggested that we read and do a little research on ferrets. Our research revealed that ferrets are strict carnivores to the Carver School community is vitally important.
Monks from Vietnam accessing the connections that colonialism and the United States as the emerging superpower after World War II provided with them to implore for assistance to create a ceasefire so that the people of Vietnam could suffer less. And Thich Nhat Hanh, in his letter to Martin Luther King Jr., a Buddhist monk writing to a Christian pastor, said, we have members of this congregation who have served in other conflicts and wars, giving all they had and watching friends die. And we have members of this congregation who have fought with all they had to stop wars through nonviolent protest. It's not for nothing that we are gathered in this place. And it is with the love of humanists, people who care about each other. Carver Middle School is about a mile in that direction from where we talk about what they're doing and how we can be of support to them, how we can be neighbors with them too. And they shared stories of the lives of these guys, what they're dealing with, and what real help would be. The bottom line is we need much more mental health support throughout our community. That is the fundamental. One of them said to me, a man who is living in life lined up on the banks and executed for their work just to try to help rebuild villages that had been destroyed. One of the monks fell in the river and survived and brought the story back. When Thich Nhat Hanh received word of the death of his fellow monks, he wept. Thich Nhat Hanh wept. And if you hear a scriptural reference in that, you're right. He wept. One of his fellow monks and nuns that was with him, traveling to the United States, turned to him and said, man, the day after he met with Dr. King and they spoke together about trying to bring peace to Vietnam, he was interviewed by a New York Times reporter. And the reporter wrote in his paper, this is a thin, small, soft-spoken man. His eyes are sad and sometimes twinkling. He doesn't speak like a great orator. He speaks like a scholar, quietly, to try to find refugees and freedom fighters and to take stores of food. And when the French left, the Vietnamese fought with each other until that conflict escalated into a war in our Cold War, and our own troops were drawn in. Here was this young man aspiring to live a holy life, a religious life, to learn, to study, to understand, and to teach. And at every turn in his own development, the world came to his doorstep with new conflict of poverty. And above all, what could be taken to villages to teach villagers how to build a more sustained life for themselves, how to empower his people. Over and over again, he and his fellow monks would build little temples, little sanctuaries, from which they would run school programs, programs teaching village governance, food relief programs. And as conflict worsened, and people caught in that conflict suffered, they began to run missions out of those temples to bring direct assistance. One of the villages that they disaster. And Thich Nhat Hanh and his colleagues got into boats, and they took stores of food from their constellation of temples they had built for the purpose of engaging their Buddhist practice in the world. And they took food relief out between combat lines, in the midst of bombing and gunfire, to just try to help people eat. It seems hopeless. It seems pointless. But the decision was that if we are going to practice that thing in real time, and the world began to listen. Thich Nhat Hanh came to the United States in 1966 to plea for peace, to propose a way forward. He called out to the world to listen to the people of Vietnam, to give them space to live and breathe, and to find a peaceful resolution to the intractable conflict. And for his efforts, for his attempt to understanding to be of service to our fellow human beings, the world will shatter us. We will break. But think about those men in the house less than a mile from us. Their lives so hurt by circumstance and addiction. We see in their lives the pain of this life, the shattering effect of our world, and think of the care he offered his friends, and think of the food that delivered through gunfire, and think of the homes they rebuilt, and think of the work of reconciliation that continued through the decades of his life and continues now even though he is dead. Think of his love for Dr. King and his commitment to continue that man's vision when his friend was murdered. The shattering of life shows us the pain to which we are all subject. Sometimes called the other Dalai Lama. And the other Dalai Lama, himself still living in exile, his people subject to war and conflict and loss, said, "Where you have friends, that is your country. And where you find love, that is your home." There are exiles and refugees.
From the crush of wealth and power, something broken in our song waits the Spirit's silent hour, beating with a poignant call. Bind all my wounds again. Even now our hearts are weary.
The chalice. Hear these words from Thich Nhat Hanh. With mindfulness, we know what to do. Meditation is not to escape from society, but to come back to ourselves and see what is going on. Once there is seeing, there must be acting. With mindfulness, we know what to do and what not to do to help.